And goodness me, over the last 6 years or so, Alice, a number of times cameras have been trained on that embassy, not least when Richard Ratcliffe has been doing one of his hunger strikes there. But today, such a joyful moment.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, but I think we all couldn't breathe a sigh of relief until that plane touched down at 1 o'clock in the morning at RAF Bryce Norton, because, of course, there have been so many glimmers of hope over the last 6 years, and then they've so often been cruelly dashed. I mean, if you look to 2 years ago when the pandemic had very much hit Iran, there was going to be a temporary reprieve that we thought Nazanin would be released. That turned out to be rumour. And then last year there were more charges levelled against her. And, of course, the impact that's had on both her and her husband and her daughter has been profound. They've both been on multiple hunger strikes between the two of them, and that's of course had huge consequences for them. So it's not a surprise necessarily that Richard Ratcliffe, when he was speaking yesterday, said, when sort of asked, what the family will be doing over the next few days, that there'll be a period of recuperation and doctors' checks as well, because of course, I mean, this is an amazing moment that we saw at the airport of a little girl who hadn't seen her mother for more than 2 years. Finally hugging and having that moment together. But of course there will be profound consequences for them as a family, but I think we can take this moment to celebrate really the hard work that's being done by so many people behind the scenes. But I think in particular, and Tulip Sadiq very much commended him in the Commons yesterday, and is the husband, Richard Ratcliffe, who has kept his wife, the suffering of his wife, at the forefront of all our minds, and has allowed that continued pressure on the government to make sure that a British woman is able to come home and be with her family at last.
Very interesting. James Cleverly's been speaking this morning, saying that it's been thanks to a change in government in Tehran that they've been able to have a bit more progress in those negotiations. Some speculation, and it is just speculation, that this is all in some way linked to concerns about energy supplies as well. Any thoughts on that, Alice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've got at the heart of this is what happens when global tensions have a very, very personal impact. And that's sadly what we've seen with Nazanin and also other dual and trio nationals that are very much caught up in this. I mean, as we were hearing from Darren earlier, I mean, there's sort of the backstory to this about this £400 million in debt, which the UK has undoubtedly owed Iran, is very much at the forefront of what's been happening. Now, both the Iranian government and the British government have been at pains to say that the two issues are not linked, but it's hard to argue that we've had this debt that hasn't been paid for over 40 years, and it's only once it has been paid that suddenly these British nationals are coming home. And yes, as we were hearing from James Cleverly earlier today, we've had a change in government, and I think there have been a number of different aspects that have made this possible. I mean, don't forget, we've also had here in the UK, since Nazanin has been in prison, we've had 3 governments that have been trying to negotiate with Iran, but what we've seen over the last 24 hours is Liz Truss has obviously been the forefront really of allowing to bring Nazanin home. But I think there are so many other dimensions at play, and I think over the next few weeks there'll be more questions asked about why it took so long for a British national to return home.
Indeed. OK.